Texans Packers. Packers come away victorious in this one, 24-22. Came down to a couple of the very last plays. Green Bay wins this one, so let's take a look at their top 5 graded players in this game. Linebacker Eric Wilson at the very top of the list with an 82.7. Romeo Dobbs with a 76.4. Edge rusher Rashawn Gary with a 74.0. And then offensive tackle Zach Tom at number 4 with a 72.6. Xavier McKinney back on the list here with a 69.1. And then Jordan Love is 72.2 in this one. Flipping over to Houston's side of things. Running back Joe Mixon, hell of a day for him, 82.5. Hell of a year, feels like, in that offense for him. Linebacker Jake Hansen with an 82.0. Cornerback Jalen Petrie, an 81.7. And then defensive tackle Tim Settle with an 81.5. Guard Shaq Mason, one of the few bright spots on that offensive line. I'll get to that in a second. 79.1 to round things out at number 5. And then CJ Stroud, a 62.7 in this game. Dalton, what was your stat that told the story here for me? Good game of two teams. It might very well be two of the top 5 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, it was a good game, but it was also a little bit ugly. And I'll be honest, going back watching
a little pitcher's duel, you know?
Yeah, kind of. I'll be honest with you. I think going back and watching it a second time, I think the Packers should have won this game by 20. And I think the way their defense played and the Texans were just stagnant when you look at it. 197 total yards. CJ Stroud only had 86 passing yards, which is crazy. It was really more to me about the 3 turnovers for the Packers. He had 2 interceptions from Love, which Love was really good outside of those 2 interceptions, but they were 2 really bad interceptions. And you had the muff punt, I believe it was in the second quarter. The Texans got 16 of their points off turnovers. Honestly, without that, they're not in this game at all the way that they played. They weren't particularly great on defense, even though they held the Packers to 24 in this game. They certainly weren't great on offense with less than 200 yards of total offense. I really do feel like the Packers, the score doesn't reflect how much better they actually should have been in this game if not for those 3 turnovers. This was 90 to 95% of a really good effort from the Packers, and the score. They almost lost the game because of the turnovers, and they did slow down on offense in the second half until that last drive. I just thought the Texans don't usually look this vulnerable, especially Stroud. And the Packers, the score should have been wider. It was obviously good for them to come out with a win, but those 3 turnovers, falling behind and then having to come back, it really kept the Texans in the game because there wasn't, outside of Joe Mixon, I don't think the Texans did a whole lot right in this game.
No, and that's an interesting angle to say, hey, the stat that told the story is not necessarily like this is why the team won. Yours is why this team should have won by even more, which gives kudos to what a season the Packers are already having to start this year off in the first half. And my stat that told the story, I'm going to go with the Packers' aggressiveness because when I looked at C.J. Stroud's numbers, and you mentioned a very low total passing total from him. When you look at it overall, 10 for 21, 86 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions from him. It was just one of the most quiet days of the office that you will see from C.J. Stroud. And I looked into why, and it felt like the Packers were bringing all sorts of pressure in this game, and they were. And I think that aggressiveness is a big reason why they were able to hamper C.J. Stroud's success. Blitzed on 37.9% of their snaps against the Texans. And Shaq Mason, honestly, this kind of goes hand in hand. Shaq Mason, the only Texans offensive lineman with a blocking grade above 63. Just whatever Green Bay was doing to bring pressure was overwhelming what the Texans had, especially on the inside, outside of Shaq Mason. But when I said, okay, well, so did Stroud play bad under pressure? Well, then I looked at the pressures, and no, he didn't. He didn't really play bad under pressure. It wasn't a great day overall. So the PFF passing grades, no matter how you looked at it, whether it was pressure or clean or just an in-between, they weren't great. But when he was pressured, it's not that Stroud made mistakes where his passing grade really would have been anchored down or much lower on the list. But Dalton, it was enough. It was just a little bit. The fact that he was flushed to his left or his right, he was making throws and making the correct reads and sometimes escaping that pressure well enough, but he was missing the throws by just a little bit. And when you miss a throw by just a little bit when you're being pressured, well, you want to take full context into account. That's what we do here at PFF. So it's not like you're going to say, oh, man, bad throw by C.J. Stroud. We're going to ding his passing grade because of that, because he was very close, and all things considered, he was giving his wide receiver a chance most of the time. So the passing grade isn't bad under pressure, but it was just that little margin. that was created by the Packers being extra aggressive against him that, to me, is the reason why you see 10 for 21 in the passing game. Not having those completions. A lot of those wide receivers, very low receiving yard totals in this game. So to me, it was that Packers aggressiveness, especially for a defensive line that has really struggled to get after the quarterback with just their four-man front through the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. They knew it had to be more in this one, and I think the fact that they were willing, Jeff Hafley, their defensive coordinator, knew this year, the fact that he was willing to dial it up, to me, was the stat that told the story here. Most impressive from you. What do you got?
Honestly, it sounds funky considering what I just went over, but I'll still go with Jordan Love because I thought outside of, and again, there were 2 really bad interceptions. He graded around a 72.3 passing grade. I thought outside of those 2 throws, we start to see a little bit of riverboat gambler from Jordan Love, but the positive comes in spades, man. I mean, he is just, when he makes the really good throws, like the touchdown up the seam in the end zone where he just zipped it by Kalen Bullock, just wasn't fair. I mean, there's times where Jordan Love looks like the best quarterback in football, but I thought this was one of the most consistent games he's played this year, an 81.3% adjusted completion rate. That was his best on the season. I think we're starting maybe to see a little more from Jordan Love. Consistency, right? He did have the 2 big mistakes. I'll admit that. It's not the best he's ever going to look when it comes to the final numbers and the grades and all of that, but still gutted it out through that. Still had, I thought, other than those 2 throws, his most consistent effort and still put together the game-winning drive. I'll still go with Jordan Love. Again, I don't think there was a ton of standouts on either side in this game, but he could have let those mistakes cascade into something worse, right? Like he did say in week 1 against the Eagles, right, when they lost that game. Would you like to see him cut down on the big mistakes? Sure, really, again, only made 2 of them in this game. You'd like to see games without multiple interceptions, but gutted it out. I thought in between all of that was really good, and I'll take him. This is, I think, a positive step in this game for Jordan Love despite the 2 turnovers.
Yeah, I see some people in the chat talking about this, including Ryan Richardson, who is one of our producers and the producer of NFLSC, noted Packer fan. He said in all caps, Jordan Love MVP. So I'd love to unpin a grenade and just throw it into the chat here for everybody. Who would you rather have moving forward, CJ Stroud or Jordan Love?
How far forward are we moving?
Forward. That's all I'm saying.
That's far.
Who would you rather have moving forward?
It's
a simple question. You don't have to answer it. I just want the chat to answer.
Okay.
They can go back and forth.
I don't have to
and
answer.
then we can
it's actually better when I don't have to answer.
That's right.
That's even better.
I mean, it's already a 2.5 hour show.
I get held liable on both shows for whatever it is I say enough. If I don't have to answer, fantastic.
Well, I want to hear from the chat and the people that watch this a little bit afterwards. Packers fans, Houston Texans fans, let us know, who would you rather have moving forward, Jordan Love or C.J. Stroud? My most impressive in this game was linebacker Eric Wilson, who was the top graded player for the Green Bay Packers. He was awesome. 56 snaps, high 80s overall grade, 88.9 passing grade. It just feels like the linebackers in general for the Packers, specifically what Eric Wilson is, and also the rookie Edgerrin Cooper, what they are doing as a group to stay aggressive and really play off of one another. I mean, they're making a ton of plays. Wilson was just so great with his anticipation, being a veteran, a guy who's been around the league quite a bit, almost 30 years old now. Like, this is somebody who was able to recognize screens, was able to get off blocks quickly, was attacking the line of scrimmage consistently. What a game from Eric Wilson, and he was a high-impact player, I think, in this one. My most disappointing was Stephon Diggs, because in a game where the chat's talking about, man, the Houston Texans could have really used Nico Collins, and they absolutely could have in this game. It was time for Stephon Diggs to step up, and he was not able to do so. 7 targets, 5 catches, only 23 yards, a 65.6 receiving grade. So 65.6, it's not terrible. But you bring in Stephon Diggs, so, like, man, if Nico Collins were to ever go down, boom, you got a wide receiver 1 right there that you can lean on. And it was a tough day at the office for everybody passing, but would have liked to see a better day from Stephon Diggs. What about your most disappointing?
I'll go on the outside for the Texans. Didn't have Kamari Lassiter in this game, but it was, so you had Derek Stingley on one side, D'Angelo Ross on the other side, and they both struggled. Honestly, there were stretches of this game. I thought the Packers were just going to throw a slant to Romeo Doubs every play because it was working every single play. And I know they played a lot of zone coverage and all that, but it was a struggle on the outside. Stingley, a 47.3 coverage grade. Ross in place of Lassiter, a 50.4. They combined to allow 11 catches for 117 yards. A tough day at the office for Texans corners, despite it not being the highest passing yard total of the day. Although we didn't, there was only one 300-yard passer this week. I mean, it's really we're continuing with this.
Oh, Baker Mayfield has yet to play. Give it time.
We'll get there. Well, it's a rough Sunday for quarterbacks, I thought, but the Texans still in big moments struggled on the outside. One more impressive guy I want to throw at you on top of Wilson. You mentioned being aggressive and at that second level. Man, the rookie Evan Williams at strong safety too.
He's been awesome.
He just keeps playing, and it's right in that vein. Literally everything you said about Eric Wilson, we could say about Evan Williams also. I love this dynamic where, look, they drafted 3 safeties, right? They drafted him and Javon Bullard and Katana Oladapo. They signed Xavier McKinney with the obvious idea of him being the deep guy because Halfley likes to run a lot of single high. But man, one of those 3 safeties, they threw darts at the wall, and one of them hit in Evan Williams. And everything you said about Wilson is the same with Williams. Another really good day, especially in run defense. He's an impact player. He's one of the best day 3 players, if not, might be the highest graded day 3, if not the highest graded player.
So.
He might be the highest graded rookie in football right now.
He was the highest graded safety that we had over the last 3 weeks. I don't know what it would be this whole season, but I gotta imagine he's still at the top of the list.
The last couple of weeks, watch him. That is a difference maker. It's unreal what he's doing at that strong safety spot. Is kind of that tweener. He can play deep half. He rotates back sometimes. He plays up as an extra linebacker sometimes. He's made their defense a lot better.
The Stroud Love discussion is going exactly the way that you would think, and I think most people are on Stroud. But there's still some people who are absolutely taking Jordan Love. So that's a question that I will continue to revisit as long as the chat
in there
wants to talk about. Hey, I don't want to start a fist fight, although I did, like I said, unpin the grenade.